Welcome everyone to this week's video. Today we are on Fish Friday number 212 and we have a good one for you today. Today's fish is a fish that is quite possibly one of the coolest fish in the aquarium trade and has some extremely unique characteristics that I hope you enjoy learning about today. Today's fish that we're going to be talking about is the Senegal biker. Now, the Senegal biker, or scientific name Polypterus senegalis, again, that's Polypterus senegalis. It is part of the family Terrestrial, which is the family of bikers and ropefish. Now, way back, about 100 videos ago, actually, we did the ropefish, which is another very popular aquarium fish. Well, as I was looking, I thought it was time that we bring back that family, which is one of the neatest families you'll ever hear. Now, the Senegal biker is also known as the gray or the Cuvier's biker. And by the way, biker is spelled B-I-C-H-I-R if you want to look it up, as you can probably tell from the title of this video. But the Senegal biker is native to tropical Africa and the Nile River system. But they're more predominantly found along the equatorial region of the Africa, so West Africa to the Nile. I don't believe they get up as far north as Egypt. I could be mistaken on that, but I feel like they're very equatorial across Africa. Now, they are very common. I believe these fish are definitely not in any danger of going extinct. Especially since they're so popular in the aquarium trade. And they can be found in all types of habitats. They're found in lakes, rivers, swamps, floodplains. They can survive anything. And the reasons for that will actually become apparent very, very soon. Now, in terms of bikers, it is kind of a smaller biker. It only reaches about 35.5 centimeters, which is about 14 inches. I believe most of the other bikers get up to about 20 inches. Ropefish get significantly longer, but they're much thinner. So ropefish are basically bikers, but real thin. Bikers have a much stouter body. If you look at this, you can tell that this fish looks like it has plenty of muscle. Throughout its body. Very cylindrical, gray to beige color, sometimes whiter or pinker, which is usually fairly common. You can see here, this is more that kind of beigeish tan coloration. Usually they will have some blotches like this one, but they're fairly uniform in color. They've got these very thick rhomboid scales, very, very thick. It's one of the easiest things to note. These thick scales, they look like armor, and they actually are. We've talked about a fish, the gar species of North America, having those very thick ganoid scales. This is very, very similar. They're interlocking, they're very thick, very, very tough, and in fact they protect the fish so well that they were used as a model for new body armor for soldiers. Now, I don't know if that body ever came out, but they were basically looking at how these scales link together to protect the fish while being so thick. And they were like, hey, maybe we can use how they join to kind of do that. So just a little neat little tidbit. Now, something you may know, that's head appears smooth and made of skin. It's actually, they do have scales on their head. The scales are just so large, so that's almost like one scale across the top of the head. One super large scale, and then it scales down the side. But they do have these very protruding nostrils. This is evident in all these pictures. But they have this very serrated dorsal fin. It becomes less serrated when it gets closer to the caudal fin. But every one of those serrations actually has pretty thick spines. And you can see in this picture pretty well. I believe there was some other pictures that show, yes, like this one. You can see these spines in here, and this is a fairly good coloration right there. You know, it almost looks like it's, you know, separate dorsal fins all down the way, but it is actually one dorsal fin. But you can tell that it's got some spines there, which is just for its protection. This fish is not exactly a stellar swimmer, and you can kind of see that when you see right here. This is primarily how they move in the water. They're very much sitting on the bottom. They're using these muscles on the bottom and in the base of their pectoral fins to, you know, kind of move themselves off as like a way of walking. And a lot of times you'll even see them, they just sit like this. They'll prop themselves up and, you know, just kind of be sitting there. Now, just because they can't move doesn't mean that they're not really voracious predators. They're actually incredibly voracious, and will do. Sorry again. They'll basically eat anything they can get their mouth on. Small vertebrates, insects, crustaceans, and they do have the teeth to basically eat anything. They're very thick, peg life with small points on them, so they can puncture. They can eat other fish. Everyone always said they kind of look like they're smiling when their mouths are closed. And now that I'm looking at these pictures close up, I can actually see that. I can actually see it. But in terms of their breeding, they actually breed during the rainy season in nature. Males will actually just chase the female around, just continually nudging her, being that like an annoying man at a bar, never letting a woman, leaving a woman alone. Eventually, the female gives in and will lay her eggs. But what's actually interesting is the male will use his kind of oddly shaped pelvic fins, and he'll catch the eggs, almost cups them together and holds the eggs, and then he'll fertilize them. The female's done. Once she lays the eggs, she goes away. The male will actually fertilize them and then scatter the eggs sporadically in vegetation, to, you know, spread out the young, and hopefully they can, you know, have a better chance of survival. It's a little unique kind of way of adaptation, and allowing them to spread their young while being very selective about where they're doing it. So the male can go to like these really good areas and let the eggs go. But now for the interesting fact we're going to end the video on, I've kind of alluded to this, and if you know bikers, you know what I'm talking about. This fish does have a pair of primitive lungs. They do not have a swim bladder. They actually have modified their swim bladder to be a pair of primitive lungs. We've talked about this so many times in this channel. It's so much more common than people think. But this fish will actually periodically breathe atmospheric oxygen from the surface of the water. And I want to say it's not even periodically. Every biker I've ever seen, they do it quite often. Sorry, got some dinner in my teeth. But they go up to, will breathe oxygen all the time. And in fact, even in a home aquarium, they'll dash. That'll be like the fastest you will see a biker move is basically when it's going up for air. But that's, while interesting in and of itself, that's actually not the interesting fact of the video, although that is interesting. The first thing, what a lot of people don't realize is fish that have, you know, that do breathe air, usually their young have these very exposed capillary gills that lose once they get older. And this is actually very common in salamanders as well. Salamanders will have these neotenic gills that their larva stage, they stay underwater and they use those gills to really absorb water. However, that's very costly and kind of dangerous because, you know, you're depending on the air for oxygen. When you have these nostrils that allow them to go up and breathe very safely at the surface. They can go up, breathe air, and come back down very quickly and safely. And they can survive in these harsher environments, which is why they're available to be in all habitats. It's also one of the issues. They can survive in any aquarium. People think they do great, and they'll have a biker, and they'll be like, oh, I don't know why all of my other fish are dying, but this thing's just flying around just fine. It's because more than likely they have a bad filtration system. Their oxygen levels have completely plummeted in the tank. The biker doesn't care. Biker just does not care. But for the real interesting fact that we're going to end the video on is, provided the skin stays moist, the Senegal biker can remain out of water indefinitely, can even be raised on land, and it'll use these pectoral fins to actually move across. And that was shown in a scientific study done in 2014, and it was really, really, really neat. So they took juvenile Senegal bikers and basically took them out of the aquatic environment. Now, they put them in an environment, they had constant misters. They had, at 3 millimeters, I think is what it said, of water along the bottom of their terrarium. So they were constantly in water, but they were not in water that would allow them to swim, but they stayed moist. And not only did the Senegal biker do well, it actually thrived. But the interesting thing about it was, not only did it survive and do well, their bodies started changing, which was the point of this study. They developed stronger and longer collarbones. They developed stronger pectoral fin muscles. They started actually developing neck muscles as well. And their pelvic girdle towards the back actually got a little stronger because they were starting to use their pelvic fins to actually help them. And it's really, really neat that they did that in such a short time, because the scientists did this as a way to kind of study how fish may have transferred from being sea creatures to coming onto land and evolving. And this fish really showed that it was significantly easier than any of them might have thought, and it may have happened faster than anyone previously might have thought. It's truly a bizarre fish. It is a fish that basically just had someone spraying it, using a spray bottle, and it not only survived, it thrived in that new environment. Super, super, super neat fish. And one of those that, put it in your aquarium, be aware of what the issues you might have with it, and it definitely should not be in a small fish aquarium, only large fish. That would be my advice. But thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. If you'd like to support the channel, please click the link down below. It is by no means expected, but very much appreciated. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'm loving those comments regardless. Take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, and peace.